fellow students. In our last previous lecture, we had handled a series of topics, and we finished handling supplier sourcing. And before that, we had handled outsourcing. Then we came to supplier sourcing, and we concluded that lecture successfully. And in this lecture, we are going to continue, and today's topic, we are going to handle procurement negotiation. After the procurement negotiation, we shall look at a series of subtopics. We shall look at quality and total quality management. Then we shall finalize with the last topic, which will be internal and external controls. That means we are going to finalize the remaining 3 topics today. Straight away to begin our topic, negotiation in procurement is an essential activity that happens in the procurement process. In the middle, that's where negotiation comes in, whereby the buyer and the supplier will need to reach the final agreement. And in the negotiation, there are very many series of activities that are also involved. It takes a period of time depending on the size of the item to be procured. So, and depending on the complexity of the procurement process. Let's define negotiation. In our topic, there's a sub-definition that says understanding the negotiation process in procurement. Objectives would be to determine the style, the strategy, and the stages of the negotiation. Looking at the objectives of the negotiation, the styles to be used, the strategies, and the stages. We shall look at all this one by one. Straight to the definition, we define negotiation as the process of discussing, bargaining to reach agreement in the procurement transaction. It involves discussion and also bargaining. Any of the words can work, and they are so helpful to us. In your definition, you should make sure you mention any of those words to reach an agreement in a business transaction. This is whereby the buyer has his offer and the seller has his offer. Obviously, when we look at the procurement range, the negotiation range, always the buyer's offer will be low and the seller's offer will be high. So they will need to reach a middle agreement, whereby that is what we call win-win, whereby every party goes satisfied. The buyer has sold the product, has made profit. Sorry, the seller has sold the product or the whatsoever he's offering, if it's service, and made some profit. Then the buyer also has gone with the product or took the product and went with the value for money. In procurement, it involves planning, analyzing, and reviewing to reach a mutual acceptance. As we said, it has steps that are involved. We need to plan. The negotiation process have to be planned. Both sides have to do their own planning. The planning will include the time, the resources required, the parties to go and negotiate, and what information is needed in the negotiation step. Then it is analyzed whether it is at a good stand to start it up. Then reviewing of the process also is done, so that the last decision made is of good benefit to any of the party. Effective negotiation is a decision-making process. That one, of course, at the end of it, it helps us to make decisions. The goal of negotiation is to come out with win-win outcome where both buyer and supplier gain a value. I've already mentioned in the beginning. The buyer will go when he has value for the money he has paid for the good or the service. Then the seller will go when he has also gained a profit. That is the win-win. The objectives of procurement negotiation, at the end of the whole procurement, we have aims, or we have targets we want to achieve. Let's look at these objectives as it is mentioned. The first is to gain specific quality. Everyone wants to the buyer wants to see that he will gain a product or a service that is based on his own specification. So the negotiation has to happen so that he can get that product or the service he needs. A secure, fair, and reasonable price, as I said, the buyer will always have the lower offer, then the seller will have the higher offer, then they will need to see where they all meet with their price. The buyer may decide to raise a little bit, then the seller may decide to drop the price a little bit, then all of them will reach at a fair price. Ensure timely performance and delivery. Also, this is some part of negotiation that is also included during the process. When is the delivery supposed to be done? Who is to deliver, and the schedule for the delivery, and where is the delivery going to be done? Control contract execution, that includes quality, service, progress report, and all that. All these are included in the negotiation process. Gain supplier cooperation. Of course, during the negotiation process, there is a mutual agreement and exchange of words. Sometimes it helps you to interact with the supplier. Establish sound and long-term supplier relationship, connecting to the point up. It helps us to have a good relationship with our supplier, because if a buyer and a supplier can sit down and talk and discuss, then they create a good relationship. Create a partnership with high quality supplier, and that is with objectives. Let's go to the styles. Of course, a negotiation has two styles. The styles are determined by the outcome. What is the outcome? When the outcome is a win-win, then there's a style to be used. Then when the outcome is a win-lose, which is not a fair style, then there is a style to be used. Let's begin with the first one, which is adversarial style, which is a win-lose, meaning one party has to lose to another, and you just have to accept the offer of the other. Like the buyer accepts the offer of the seller without any choice. You have nothing to do, and you just go with it like that. This style is competitive in the nature, or it have competitive goals. The style itself, the interaction is more of interest to compete and win. Use of threats also is included in this style, where the buyer may be threatening the seller. If you don't take it, then it's okay, you go, I'll get another buyer. Such kind of threats. Rapid approaches, which may lead to loss of control or low of trust. Low trust, which is also included in this system of approach, the system of style, whereby there is the way people talk is not more of friendship, is not more of cooperative, is more of like force pulling of ropes, if we use a layman's language. Secrecy and manipulation is included in this style. The other part has a lot of secrets. Doesn't want the buyer will have a lot of secrets, not telling the seller. Yes, then the seller also has his own secrets, is not telling the buyer, is included in this style. Outcomes misrepresented. Sometimes in this style, the outcome of the product are not rightly explained to the buyer. So there is manipulation of the buyer. You buy this, it will do this, it will do this, it will do this. But at the end of the day, that is not the product qualities or what the product can offer to the buyer. So the buyer is just manipulated so that the seller can win and take take the price or the money for the product. There is we win, you lose, that attitude. In this style, the buyer wants to win and the seller has to lose. That approach is there. Then it is the opposite, the other side. The other style, which is the best, is what we call partnership, where both parties have to go with something at the end of the negotiation process. It includes shared goals, openness and flexibility. Can easily change. You're not rigid. There is no rigidness compared to the first one where there is too much rigidness, but here there's flexibility. Someone's open and, okay, let me add a little bit of a price. Okay, let me reduce. The price change is flexible. It's not rigid. Problem-solving approach also, it involves solving problems that may come with a product and may come within the negotiation process, and how that problem could be the lead time, could be the delivery time, and these issues can be handled in this style of negotiation. There's high trust and transparency. There's mutual benefits and empathy in this style also. Both parties go home when they are all satisfied. In this party, everyone has an attitude of we both must win. Everyone must win. Let's look at the negotiation cycle. In the negotiation cycle, the first step or the first item that comes is get the facts. That is the first item, whereby every party has to go to the market and get information about the supplier. That is for the buyer. Then the supplier also may need to know about the buyer also. So there is collecting of facts about the other party someone is going to face a negotiation with. Then after that, there is determining the bargaining strength. The other party need to know what are the strengths of the other party that they are going to face in the negotiation, because the bargaining strength is very important. Let's give an example. You're going to bargain with, let's say, JEDCO, the only company that provides power. Definitely, you have no choice. Whatsoever they offer, you have to take it, because they are the only provider. So that one gives JEDCO the strength to be a good, or to have more strength than you, the buyer, on bargaining. So you need to know what are the strengths of the party that you're going to bargain with. Then there you set objectives, which includes the price. What price would you want to walk out with? What delivery time would you want to walk out with? Then the quality of the product you wish to walk out with after the negotiation. You set that one in form of objectives. You plan the strategies and the tactics you're going to use. This is also very important. We shall look at the strategies and the tactics that we use during negotiation. That one, I will hold it so that we come back there, so that you know what are the tactics. And so you need to plan which tactics and the strategy will you use. This depends on the person or the buyer you're going to face if you're a seller. And then negotiate. Of course, we go now to the negotiation, round table sitting, and now you start to bargain, or you start to discuss on the offer. That offer and this offer, how do you work out at the end of the negotiation? Then you see how best you agree on the price. Then after the negotiation process, there is need to review the performance. You review the outcome of the negotiation, so that it helps in decision making in the next negotiation process. That is all about the cycle. Of course, the cycle keeps on rotating, as it is called the cycle. Then it, of course, goes back. Then from the information you collect, it will also help you as facts in the market. It will add on the facts. Then the cycle continues, depending, so long as you're purchasing or you're buying products. The bargaining strength. We talked of the bargaining strength here. We said in point number 2 under the circle, we say determine the bargaining strength. Let's look at it in more depth. What is let's look at the buyer's bargaining strength. When we look at the buyer's bargaining strength, the strength is determined, or the strength is how much influence will you have in the bargaining process. That is the strength. Of course, we look at it at the positive way. How much influence can you influence the other party to agree what you are offering? So what are these determinants of the strength of the bargaining, or the influence you can put on the seller? This strength comes in when there are many buyers, sorry, when there are many sellers available, as I gave the example with Jericho. Of course, bargaining with Jericho is a little bit difficult because you have no other choice. If at all you need them to give you power, and maybe we can look at the solar, but given the reliability of their work, of their product, it may be difficult compared to when you're bargaining to a supplier who has a competitor, who has a closer competitor. From there now, at least you can have more bargaining power. So the first determinant is the number of the suppliers available in the market of that product. When there are many, then from there you have strength. Let's give an example. You are bargaining with the MTN, for example. You have more strength as a buyer to bargain because we have competitors of MTN who may offer low price. Could be you need airtime, monthly airtime supply to staffs, or you need internet service. You know, there are more service providers that provide more better service or more services closer to what MTN can provide. So the buyer at this point become more stronger compared to when you are bargaining with a monopoly company. Availability of alternatives, that's what we call better alternatives to a negotiation agreement, which is the partner. When there are more better alternatives, the buyer becomes more stronger. But if the buyer has little or limited alternatives, that means he has less strength in the bargaining. Prepared and researched, how much prepared are you and how much information do you have to negotiate or to discuss with your supplier. The cash payments, this one also comes in. When you are ready to pay cash, your bargaining strength is more than when you are bargaining to pay later. This one also is another determinant of the buyer's strength. When the buyer is ready to give cash, he can talk more stronger than when he is to get the product and again begging to pay later. There the supplier becomes more stronger than the buyer. The urgency of the product you need. When the product you need is not too urgent, as a buyer, you don't need it so urgently. You can take your time, you know. But when you need it urgently, you'll have no choice than to accept what the supplier will offer. Let's look at the supplier side. Of course, it's the opposite of the other one. When a supplier is a monopoly, as I already explained in the buyer side, then the supplier becomes a strong bargainer. When buyers high urgency, that means the buyer needs that product urgently, then also the supplier becomes stronger in the bargaining process. Low quality demand, large quality demand, when the quantity demanded is much, and he is the only person who can provide this quantity, then the buyer has no choice than to wait. Could be the delivery time. The supplier will say, I can only deliver this after 1 month. Because the quantity is a lot, you have no choice as a buyer than go with the deal, just as he has determined. So there, the supplier becomes more stronger. Unique product. When the product the buyer wants or the supplier is offering in the market is unique, not common, not easily found, then at that point also, the supplier becomes strong. I did mention in our circle, and I said there's a step whereby you need to determine the strategy and the tactics, and I said we are going to look at the strategies and the tactics at this point. So let's look at the strategies and the tactics of negotiation. Decide the order of the issues. How are you going to present your issues? That is one of the tactics. You need to decide who mentioned what and who is to respond after. Of course, there is a negotiation committee. Always when there is a negotiation, there is a committee that is formed to go and negotiate. So you need to decide in the committee who will come first to present. Then the second person will come and present which point. Then that is, you need to determine that. Also on the strategies and the tactics, it also involves Determining who opens the negotiation, I've already talked about that. Then planning time of, also planning the time on when you sit down and start talking is very important. In most cases, as a strategy or tactics, you need to plan a time when your opponent is not comfortable. That is one of the tactics. You use the time when your opponent is not comfortable. That's why in most cases, it's good to invite the other party to your environment. And you alone know your environment, and the timing could be the time when he's comfortable, when you need to know that time when he's squeezed and he has nothing to do than accept an offer. That is another strategy that is used. Also, we link issues. We can link price and quantity. That is also another strategy of negotiating. When you talk of the price, then you need to put there the quality of it. You need to see how you link the two together. You say, I'm giving you at this price, I'm accepting the product at this price, but the quality must be this. This is a strategy of negotiation. This is why when you go to negotiate, you find products of different grades. Someone say, okay, let me give you this product at this price. But this one I cannot give at this price because of the quality. So it is linked to, these are some of the strategies. Most people use these strategies in the market, but when they just use it as a normal thing, but this is exactly what is happening. Anticipate the opponent's reaction. You need to know what the opponent is up to. You need to study the opponent quickly and easily to understand what he is up to. You need to know the next step he's going to. That is also another strategy. By seeing the way he reacts, by seeing the facial reactions, by seeing the way they discuss among themselves, you can know this is what they want to do now. Maybe now they want to break off. There is that flow. We shall come to that. Plan counter to opponent's tactics. You need to also plan the counter to the tactics or the strategy the opponent will present to you. This is also very important. Let's look at the techniques. Effective questioning. You need to have questions that are so effective. You need to set questions that are straight and clear. You need to also use diversifications. For example, you create a break or you create a humor where people can know something funny to reduce tension. So that when tensions are rising, people can relax, something like people can go for a break, something like that during the negotiation. Then make positive statements that are promising, statements that show that we are still going ahead in the negotiation, not statements that are closing up the negotiation process. Be a good listener. That is also another one. During negotiation, it's good to be a good listener so that it's easy for you to counter respond. Then you also need to observe the body language of your opponent. The person you're negotiating with is also very important. You need to gather thorough supplier background information. Is also very important. Lastly, in our slide under negotiation, we need to look at the clause. What are these clauses we can employ or we can put during the negotiation process? One is to use manipulative or gain advantage by risk for long-term relationship. That is what I had mentioned before. We can use manipulative actions. We can manipulate the other person, which sometimes are not good, because some of these manipulatives are to influence the other opponent to accept the offer. The examples of this manipulative action could be offering two choices, whereby there is one bad one and one with good intent. This one is common in some markets, whereby someone offers you a product, mostly at a random. This one is common at a random. Someone offers you a product and say, I'm offering you this at this price. Let's say maybe 10,000, a shoe. He's saying, I'm giving you this at 10,000. Then, before you know it, another person will come closer to that person, will say, I'm giving you at 9,500. It's just a manipulative tactics. In most cases, you find these people are doing the same product or they're selling, they're dealing together, but it's a manipulative tactic or a ploy they're using, a ploy they're using. Setting unrealistic deadlines could also be another manipulative ploy. You set unrealistic deadlines that they are not there, so that you influence that person. Could be you put a deadline closer so that you push that person to accept. He has no choice. A closed deadline, so what do I do? Let me just go with the offer. You can use signs like arm twisting, you can use signs like you're bored, such kind of sign. Then someone will know maybe the deal is going to die. So what do I do? Let me just accept. Phases of negotiation. This one I'll be very quick because they are more to the circle. Of course, we have the preparation stage where you set your objectives, you research on supplier. I've mentioned this. You choose the team and the venue, that is where the team that is going for the negotiation, then the venue where the negotiation will take place. And I said, in the best negotiation, for you to attain the best negotiation target or objective, you need to at least put it at a venue that is at your favor. Then introduction stage, of course, introduce an agenda, rules, create a conducive environment. This is the next stage after the preparation stage. Of course, the introduction comes in when now the two parties are seated. Then you need to present the agenda, then the rules of the negotiation process, then the environment must be, of course, conducive and all that. Discussion and debating stage, of course, there now the other party will throw their offer on the table, then the other one will also respond to the offer. That is the debating stage. Then discussion, then agreement and conclusion stage, whereby now you come to agree on how you are concluding the discussion, the last point of agreement, whereby now you sign the minutes of the discussion. Then you will have what we call post-negotiation stage, whereby you draft contracts, seek approvals, and monitor performance. This is the last stage, whereby now, after the negotiation, you have reached an agreement. Let's assume an agreement has been reached, and it's a win-win negotiation. Then a contract is drafted. Then maybe approvals may be needed from the higher management. Then performance is monitored. Lastly, elements of an effective negotiation. We have looked at all this process and I have mentioned a lot of points. But what makes it a successful one in a summary? Substantive issues resolved. At the end of this negotiation, what makes it an effective, there must be main issues that are agreed upon: price, quality, quantity, and the lead time, the delivery time. These issues must have, and many more others, depending on the nature of the product or service that is on the table discussed. Working relationships preserved and improved also is another important element. How supplier and the buyer are going to relate after, or even after the negotiation and the continuing process, or the continuously, how will they interact? So this relationship must be improved during the negotiation. That means there must be some bonding and some friendship created and all that. Wise agreements are mutually satisfying, both parties winning, in other words, which is a win-win agreement. Efficiency, cost and time effectiveness. All the resources that have been said have been used efficiently, and the target has been achieved. That is also another very important element in our negotiation. Harmony promotes good interpersonal relationship. Of course, there must be harmony after negotiation. People must live happy and with a joyful outcome, and everybody feels satisfied. Let me stop here with negotiation. We shall come back in the next section or in the next lecture with quality and total quality management. Thank you.